Welcome to Truth and Company Boxing. I'm your host, John the Truth Dioria, and today we got a special show for you. It's a little bit about education in the boxing world. Everybody that's involved in boxing or that watches boxing knows about the guys in the corner, but do you know what they actually do or what their purpose is or what you need to know to be in the corner? Well, today we have one of the world-known cutmans on our show. He's going to talk about being a cutman, how he got into being a cutman, what you need to know about being a cutman, and what type of tools you need to have as a cutman. So I want to bring on Glenn Doc Gilberg.
Good
How
morning.
you doing today? Good morning. I appreciate you taking time to come on. I know you're a very busy man.
Always have time for you, sir.
Thank you. So first I want to ask, what kind of medical education and background do you have?
Do I have? Well, I spent about 20 years as a New York City paramedic. And after that, I went back to school and I became a physician assistant and I specialized in emergency medicine. So I've been in the field of in the emergency room and treating cuts and injuries of that nature, probably for the better part of 40 years.
Wow. Okay. And then, so how did you go from that? I know you're still involved in that, but I mean, how did you go from that into the sport of boxing?
Well, the short version is my brother worked in a New York State upstate hotel that had a lot of training camps. The hotel was called Kutcher's, and it was up in the Catskill Mountains. And he had a lot of interaction with a number of training camps, and one of them was Alex Stewart. My brother Neil became very close with Alex and his family, and it was Alex actually who basically took notice of my job and what I was doing and suggested that I get involved with cut work if I was interested. So I took him up on that offer. I became connected with Tommy Gallagher, the trainer. Tommy brought me over into the Universal Gym in Queens, where he went over some of the basics with me to see if I felt it would be a smooth fit or not to transition into the boxing world. And actually, to tell you the truth, it seemed very comfortable and sort of natural to me. So Tommy got me hooked up with a couple of bouts. And then after that, word of mouth spread and my skills and abilities just sort of coalesced into the boxing ring. It was a very smooth transition for me, and it's worked out well. I enjoyed the work very much.
And so how many years have you been a cutman now?
Going on 10 years now.
Okay. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but before you became a cutman, you really didn't have any interest in the sport of boxing? Did you not even watch it?
Pretty much that would be it. I was not a big fan of boxing. I mean, I was aware of its existence, and my brother was more into it than I was. And any contact that I had with the sport really would have come about when I was visiting the hotel, and I would just visit some of the training camps. But there was no interest in the sport to the point where I would know any names or what it meant, to be following somebody's record, how they were going and how they were progressing, who the trainers were, who the up and coming talents were. It's amazing how that's all changed in just a few short years.
Yeah, so you were kind of like the new kid at school walking into boxing. You really didn't know who anybody was, and nobody knew who you were.
Quite correct, sir.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, that's a different way to get into the sport. Most people at least have some, idea of who some of the fighters are, the trainers, or any of that, and before they get into the sport. So I guess let me ask you then: Were you welcomed with open arms?
Well, let me back up for a second. The people that are doing cut work basically come from one of two directions. One direction is you're coming from the boxing world and you're learning the cut or the medical component. And the other is you're coming from the medical component and you're learning the boxing side of things. So most people come from that first side where they're involved with boxers and trainers in the gym, and then they're going to try to learn about being a good cut person or a good corner person. And I came from the other side. There's a small number of us that have come from that direction. So that's how this developed. Now, what was your follow-up question, sir?
No, just I mean, how were you perceived when you first came in? Because nobody knew you. I mean, did everybody just welcome you in like like you had already been there, like you were involved in the sport already?
Well, I'll tell you, the people that are well established, the people who have records, and they're either collecting belts or they're moving towards collecting belts, they have a pretty solid small community um, of individuals that are well known to each other, and their abilities, because you're entrusting your success to the cut person to help you out here. Um, it's a very closed group. It's a very small community, and it's pretty close. So if you want to get into that to that level, you really have to make a name for yourself, and you have to prove yourself. So in the beginning, for the first several years, I would just pick up fights and work with people that had either it was their debut or they just had a few bouts under their belt, um, and just build a name for yourself. And then as time went on, I began to be offered certain championship bouts or title bouts, if you will. Um, and then it was word of mouth that after you had one or two really fight-saving cut management episodes where people took notice, where if it was on Showtime or another venue, um, people could see the results of your handiwork, how important the role of the cut man could actually be in determining whether you ended up with a win or a loss. And from that point in time, things took off very well, and I'm in a good place right now. I'm very happy with it.
Okay, so let me ask you about your first experience because, like I said, you didn't have any experience with boxing at all. So your first experience in the corner, how did that go? How did you feel? What fighter were you in the corner for?
The very first fight I had was with Rahman Yusupov, and it was on, I believe, a Dmitry Salita fight um, card. Um, Back in 2013 would be a guess. And as far as for me, it was just a question of becoming acquainted with, interacting with the trainer, and getting in and out of the ring in an appropriate time span. But as far as working within that 45 seconds that you have, listening for the whistle, coming from an emergency medicine background, working under pressure was no transition for me whatsoever. It was smooth. It was easy. I felt very comfortable with what I had to do. That was nothing new for me. So moving from that and then into other bouts, and it was very easy for me. It was very smooth, and really, I got to tell you, it was with complete level of comfort as far as that goes. Working with the different personalities of the trainers, as well as the fighters themselves, the athletes themselves. That's the human element. That's people to people, and you just have to get a sense of reading where they are, what they expect from you, how comfortable they are with your abilities, and you just match up to that, and you get a good outcome. Things work out well.
And to follow that up, how explain to me so people understand how important is it that you're the fighter that you're working with trusts you and that you trust them so that you guys can work together. I mean, because you are literally sometimes having to work on their face and do things. So, I mean, there has to be a built relationship, correct?
You hit on a very, very good point. If you take a moment to step back and think about from the fighter's perspective, they've trained for months and months. They're in a situation right now where basically every second counts, and they're relying on you, who they may not have met before tonight. So now they have a cut. Now you want the fighter to focus on what they need to do for the next round, or you want them to focus on, gee, I wonder if the cut man knows what the hell they're doing. So very early on, either at the weigh-in or even before that, I will sit with the fighter unless they're known to me. If it's a new fighter, I will sit and I will spend 5 or 10 minutes going over my background, my expertise, and giving them a level of comfort so that they have confidence in my abilities. And I tell them, just listen to your trainer and get your job done, and I will do my job. Don't worry about a cut whatsoever. I promise you, I guarantee you, I will take care of it. And things have worked out that way. Um, no one has expressed any concern to me, either the trainer or the fighter, that, are you okay with this? Does this look bad? It's never an issue. I always say, I got this. And I do. It's fine. It's not just me. Any trainer that has confidence in their cut person, and any cut person that has confidence in their own abilities, will get the job done, guaranteed.
So explain to me, well, just so the fans understand and people that are coming up in boxing, how important is it for a team to actually pick a proper cut man and have a proper cut man on their team?
You ask a bunch of very good questions.
Thank you.
It's a very valuable component to have somebody in your corner. As a fighter, you hunt around and you look for who you think is going to be the best trainer to match your goals, your desires. And then once you have the right trainer, things to progress, you need the right corner people. And selecting the right corner person is more than just, I'm going to use my buddy. It's what's their training? What's their level of skill and their abilities? How are they going to get the job done? Am I going to be comfortable working with this person? And so it comes down to training. The right cut person will present with a recipe for success. And selecting that right person, as the trainer or the fighter, you got to do your homework. What's this person's track record? Are they just a gym rat who hangs out at the gym and they got a jar of Vaseline? Or do they actually know what they're doing? Have they taken steps to gain some kind of an education, formal or informal, but just to become good at the skills that are required to get the job done as a cutman?
So you actually almost have to do like a job interview.
That would be a good idea, without a doubt. Yes.
Okay, so talk to me about some of the injuries that can occur in the ring in a fight, and some of the injuries that you've had to deal with.
When you think about the face has a lot of blood vessels, very vascular. So the ability to control an injury there is sort of at the top of the list of the skills required or expected of a cut person. You have bones that surround the eye, the orbit bone. It's a very friable bone, and it's very easily broken. So if you think about getting punched, any blow to this region that's strong enough or has enough force to cause a cut can also cause a fracture. If you fracture that bone, it can affect your vision. If the fighter's vision is being affected, then I ask you the question, can they adequately defend themselves? You'll see ringside physicians step in and stop a fight if someone is complaining of double vision because of a fracture in that bone. So cuts below the eye, pretty typically, it's not going to stop a fight, but you can control that bleeding with use of adrenaline or Ravitine. The cuts that are more challenging are the cuts that are above the eye, that blood can drop into the eye and once again affect your vision. You don't want that to happen. So anytime there's a cut, depending upon what tools you brought with you, the end swell is very good at controlling swelling. You apply it with force, and it's cold. It causes constriction of the blood vessels, and things work in your favor. Getting the bleeding under control very aggressively with the use of whatever materials the particular commission permits, whether it's adrenaline, Ravitine, or other products that are on the market, using them aggressively is the answer. And If you're skilled and comfortable using it, you're confident in your abilities, the job gets done.
Okay, and explain that to me so some of the fans understand what is Avitine and adrenaline, and how do you use it?
All right, so adrenaline is a medication. It's a liquid form. I apply it onto the swabs. The mechanics of it are such where it causes the blood vessels to constrict down, to tighten up, and when that happens, bleeding stops. The same thing can be said about the end swell. When you apply the end swell to a cold blood vessel, it causes it to constrict. Avitine is a powder, comes on a little sponge. You apply it to the cut, and when the Avitine actually touches the bleeding, it causes it to stop bleeding, to coagulate. It helps form a clot. The two products, if you bring them with you and use them appropriately, they get the job done. I'll tell you, I've used them hundreds of times in over 1,000 bouts. I've never once had a failure. So it's good stuff.
Okay, so no, I know a lot of times the outside ring doctor will make decisions to stop, to have the fight stopped. He'll tell the ref to stop it. But now you as a cut man, and the fact that you have a really extensive medical background, have you ever had to tell the corner, look, I feel that we need to stop this fight based on your experience, and then the fight had to be stopped? I mean, have you had to do that?
So I will tell you this. The cut person not only has the authority, but they have the responsibility to address the needs of the safety of the fighter. It'll break everybody's heart, and you'll probably on the social media, you'll probably get an ass whipping. But the reality is, if you think that your fighter cannot safely defend themselves because of an injury, perhaps affecting the vision, it's your responsibility to let the trainer know, let the ringside doc know, and the ringside doctor will make that determination. I take very seriously my responsibility for the fighter's safety. And I will tell you this, after I finish doing my little magic on the on the fighter's face before I step out of the ring, I always ask, can you see okay? Those are the last words that I say before I step out of the ring. And thus far, I've never had an issue with it, but it's something to keep in mind.
So, but I mean, have you had to do that though? Have you had to
Never.
be the bad guy?
Nope, never.
Oh, okay. So now talk to me a little bit about the supplies and the things that, as a cut man, that you need to bring to the ring to make sure you're being responsible and have everything you need.
Okay. Basically, I bring swabs, I bring Vaseline, I bring my end swells, ice bags, Avitine, adrenaline. I made a bunch of videos. There are about 7 videos that I've made. They're all on YouTube. You can find them under Boxing Cutman Complete Guide. One of them talks about adrenaline. One of them talks about Avitine. Another one I actually made during a fight, during an event in Milwaukee, where someone had sent me a request to make a video about what equipment I bring with me. So I just laid it all out on the table while I was between bouts, and I did a quick video on that. It's all standard stuff. When you get down to specific techniques, particularly when it comes to adrenaline as a liquid, when you soak it onto a swab, if you're going to put it into the cut above the eye, I wrap a piece of gauze around the adrenaline so that any liquid that drips down will get absorbed and not go into the eye. These are all technique sensitive things, which I go into in those videos. I go into in exquisite depth, moving very slowly for anybody who really wants to learn it and has the patience to go through the videos. It's step by step, and it basically, I'm telling you, no secrets. Everything I do, why I do it, and how I do it. If you think it's worthwhile, give it a shot. There are other videos that are out there by other cut people, and I would recommend that anyone who's interested in getting into the field, look at as many videos as you can, get the different perspectives and the methods that they do things, and come up with what you're comfortable with and what you think is going to work well between you, the trainer you're working with, and the athlete who's in the corner.
Just so you know, I know exactly what videos you're talking about, and I have watched them.
Well, thank you.
And they are very educational and very interesting. So I recommend to anybody out there that wants to be a cutman and wants to learn more about being a cutman, take some time. There's 11 videos. They're on YouTube, like he just said. He breaks down everything. He explains everything so that you can understand it. So go watch these videos.
I will tell you something else though. If as far as education goes, any of your listeners that plan on attending the International Boxing Hall of Fame weekend, which is June 8 to 11, on the night of June 9, there's a Salida Promotions event occurring at the Turning Stone Casino. It's a full card of, it'll be a quality event, a lot of action-packed boxing, I'm sure. The following morning, Saturday morning, at the casino, there's going to be a presentation, a 2-hour presentation, which is free of charge to anybody in the boxing community that's interested in the dynamics of how the cut person interacts with the trainers. There are some very well-known, world-famous trainers: Sugar Hill Stewart, David Lee Jackson, John David Jackson. These people work with Tyson Fury, Clarissa Shields. They're going to be on a panel that includes ringside physicians, myself as a cut person, and also Dr. David Bianchi, who is one of the top cut people in Europe. And we're all going to be discussing the role of the cut person and their interactions with the trainers. So we'll be talking about the interaction, how to get the job done, how trainers and fighters should be selecting a cut person, as well as actual techniques. And there's going to be a question and answer period at the conclusion. So if you're in the area, or if you're planning on attending that event, by all means, stop by, and I think you'll find it very, very satisfying and enjoyable.
Okay, and say the date and the time again for that.
That's going to be Saturday, June 10, from 10 a.m. to noon at the Turning Stone Casino, the morning right after the fights.
Okay. Now, talk to me about the biggest fight that you've ever been involved in the corner.
Yeah, the biggest fight, I don't know how to answer that question. You get, for me, I look at every fighter entering the ring, whether it's for a title bout or, a debut. Nobody enters the ring looking to lose. For the fighter, everybody wants to get that win. And as the cut person, I use the same supplies and equipment, whether it's a championship bout in Madison Square Garden or if it's a local club show. I want to give every fighter the same energy and help them achieve that win. So, if it's a televised fight or not, if it's a local club show that's just a small crowd, I give everybody 100%. Nothing less than that. I enjoy the work, and I enjoy building the reputation of providing a quality service to the athlete. And that's how you build a reputation, I think.
Okay. So if you were to write a book about your whole life in boxing, being a cut man, what do you think the title would be?
That's easy. That is easy. The cut man who is the hero in your corner.
Nice. So speaking, to prove that I watched your videos, I'm going to bring up something that I learned from you. And I don't know if you came up with this term or if it's in the medical field, but I thought it was very interesting. And I want you to talk about it because I don't think enough people realize it in boxing. Talk to me about the facial marks of the fighter's face.
All right. So your cheekbones are right here. And for some people, based upon their actual bone form, the cheekbones are more prominent. So if they're standing out, if you get hit with a glancing blow, you're more inclined to develop a cut. And then nobody likes to get cut. Nobody likes to get, an injury that's going to require attention. So at the beginning, when I first meet a fighter, I look at their facial characteristics. Do they have very prominent cheekbones that are likely to bleed? Do they have very prominent orbital bones that are likely to bleed? To get a cut above the eye is something that requires 110% of the attention of the cut person, because that is the risk for a fight stoppage. And in my view, a fight stoppage is totally unacceptable. It's an unacceptable risk, and you better have the tools in your little bag of tricks there to get the job done. Don't just come to work with a jar of Vaseline and a Q-tip that you made at home with some absorbent cotton, all right? Because that's not being fair to the boxer, and it's unprofessional.
Okay. So now some people might not know this, and I also learned a little bit about this out of one of your videos. Talk to me about how important a fighter's diet is when it comes to cuts and injuries.
I think that's a good point. And, you know, I present that to fighters when I first meet them, and I just present certain information that I want them to think about for themselves. It's not, I'm not saying yes, and I'm not saying no, but I am saying that there is science out there that says, if, you know, for example, if you're an older person, you'll see advertisements on television for products. They'll tell you to take omega-3 or an aspirin every day to protect your heart. And what happens with those products is they interfere with platelets. And platelets are the portion of your blood that help with forming blood clots. So blood clots in older people is not a good thing. However, if you're a young boxer, you don't want to do anything that's going to interfere with platelets, because that's going to slow the platelets' work, which is going to allow bleeding to continue. And you don't want bleeding to continue. You want to do everything you can to encourage bleeding to stop. So we use direct pressure. We use the N-swell for that as well. We use chemicals, whether it's Avatine or adrenaline, to help stop the bleeding. Certain foods like omega-3, fish oils, certain products like aspirin or any product that contains aspirin interferes with that. There are certain foods like vitamin C, vitamin K, leafy green vegetables. Eat your spinach. Those things help promote platelet formation. So depending upon, let's say for the week prior to a fight, you stay away from aspirin, you stay away from fish oils, you stay away from omega-3, and you do add extra sources of natural vitamin C, vitamin K, leafy green vegetables. If you were going in for a minor surgery, the surgeon would tell you these very same things. Stay away from aspirin and stay away from those other products until after your surgery was done. We're just following the same guidance.
Okay. So in your opinion, do you believe that some boxers that have Parkinson's disease after fighting, do you believe that this is caused by trauma from their career in boxing?
You know, you certainly did your homework before you started the show. There's the chief medical officer for the New York State Athletic Commission is a doctor by the name of Nitin Sethi. And he's a neurologist. He works as a neurologist, and he has written books about the effect of concussions on not just fighters, but athletes in general. So there is evidence out there that strongly suggests that there can be a relationship between taking head blows and other processes that affects cognitive abilities in the future years. So it is something to certainly be considered.
Okay. So like we were talking earlier about a relationship between the fighter and the cutman, and sometimes you don't really get to know them until like right before the fighter at weigh-ins. So have you personally ever had, I guess, a fighter like not want to listen to your advice, or, you know, during the fight or in the locker room after the fight when you're trying to help them medically?
One instance, I'm not going to mention any names, But there was one instance where there was a fighter in the corner between rounds who had a nasty cut that did require attention. And he just wouldn't sit still. He was flopping his head around like a fish out of water. And I kept trying to tell him, you got to hold still so I can do this thing here. And he just wasn't hearing it. So that was perhaps one of the more challenging episodes in my history in the boxing ring.
Okay. Now, I know to you this might be basic, but I want some of the fans and some people that are involved in boxing maybe to understand. So how do you stop a bloody nose in the middle of a fight? Like you said, you only have like 45 seconds. So what is the best way to do that?
You know, a lot of what you do and how you function depends upon the actual commission that has sanctioned the bout. Different commissions have different rules. Typically, if there's a nosebleed, I take the swab, I soak it. It's already pre-soaked with adrenaline, and I keep it inside of a sandwich bag, and that sandwich bag is inside another sandwich bag that has ice. So you have a cold swab that's already soaked with adrenaline, and I'll insert that into the nose and then squeeze the nose. So now I have one hand that's occupied with holding that. My other hand, I'm going to continue to either use the ice bag or put Vaseline on the face or use the end swell to control some swelling that may be developing under the eye.
Okay.
I'll do that until the whistle blows. Then the swab comes out and maybe a little Vaseline goes in to try to serve as a plug so that it doesn't rebleed.
And how dangerous is it if a fighter is swallowing blood?
Not dangerous at all. And to be honest, it may be uncomfortable, but with everything else that's going on, I don't know that they're even going to take notice of it.
Okay. And what about like some fighters get their eardrums busted? How do you take care of that? Does it just heal by itself, or
you probably won't be aware of that unless the fighter says, I can't hear out of that ear. The eardrum is deep inside the ear and really can only be visualized by using that little device, an otoscope that the doctor uses to look inside. And if that is in fact noticed, then chances are there'll be a recommendation that they follow up with an ear, nose, and throat specialist, for ongoing management and healing.
So now, are you, as a cutman and the fact with your background, are you allowed to stitch up a fighter in the locker room after a fight?
As a physician assistant, you have to have a supervising physician, a doctor, who does not physically have to be present at the site where you're working. When I worked in my real job, there's no physician there, and yet I go about my duties, and everything I do is reviewed by a physician within the next day or two. A physician assistant has to be licensed in any state that they're working. So if I'm working a cut, let me rephrase that. If I'm working as a cutman in a state in which I'm licensed, and my supervising physician is perhaps a ringside doctor there, they can authorize me to do stitch work. That would be very remote if you think about it. When the fighter returns to the dressing room from the ring, within the span of another minute or two, the next fight is going to go on. And typically when I'm working, I'm not doing one bout, I'm doing multiple bouts. Most of the evening, I don't even return to the locker room until after the final fight of the evening. I can be out there for 4, 5, or 6 fights back to back, which is not uncommon for me. So to be taking care of an injury afterwards, it's very unlikely, very unusual.
But you can do it though if you had to do it.
Do I have the skill and the ability?
Oh,
yes,
no, I know you. No, I know you have the skill and the ability, but I'm just saying that you are allowed to do it if you had time to do it.
Circumstances can fall into place where that could happen, but that would not be routine. That would not be routine, and it's not within the scope of the cutman profession that would be within the scope as working as a physician assistant.
Okay. So tell
And for
me,
that, this there are some physicians who actually do cut work, and they themselves obviously can close the wound too.
okay. So tell me now, you've been doing this for 10 years, and like we brought up in the beginning, you didn't even follow boxing before this. So tell me, in your personal opinion, what is the best thing you love about being a cut man in boxing?
That's the easiest question of the evening that you've tossed in my direction. You come in with a set of skills and you're anxious to apply them in a way that's going to help someone else achieve their dream. So the most satisfying part of the evening for me is keeping the fighter safe and hopefully they achieve their goals. And then if there's no fight stoppage due to a cut, then I've done my job, regardless of whether there's a W or an L.
All right, and I got one question left for you.
Okay.
So if someone wants to be a cut man, what's the best advice that you can give them?
Do your homework. If you listen, there's no magic here. No magic. If you have the drive, if you have the focus where you want to do this, if you feel the passion that you want to do it, do your homework. Watch the videos, and then you'll get a sense. Go to a gym, attend a fight, and say, I'm looking at this thing going on here. The person getting in the ring has got 45 seconds roughly to get the job done. If you think you can handle that pressure, then go for it. As far as the skill, you can learn that. When I say do your homework, I actually mean do your homework. Practice, practice, and practice. Watch the videos. Go to the gyms. Talk to other cut people. Using what's in here combined with your hands under pressure. If you can bring those three components together, you'll be very successful. There's no reason not to be. On the personality side of things, if you can get along with the fighter and the trainers who have maybe very different personalities than your own natural personality, then just shut your mouth and get the job done.
All right. And hold on with that. The truth has spoken.